Welcome to the pre-market insight for April 22nd, 2020. Netflix has officially kicked off earnings, so we have a lot of charts to get to. Let's go. And we're taking a look at the ES, the S&P 500 futures. We're going to make this morning's video short, sweet, and to the point because we have a lot of trading to get ahead of us. So we're coming in up just about 50 points on the S&P, trading currently at 2781. And this is a very interesting confluence that is currently happening because yesterday we were speaking about the fact that we have at some times mostly a negative correlation between the gold markets and the equity markets, and in this case we're using the ES, the S&P 500 as the equity market proxy. And today you can see that we're up almost 2% on ES. We are up 2.4% on gold. And in fact, if you look at oil as well, we are up just about 20% on oil, trading to session highs just at around $14 a barrel. And it's important to pay attention to which asset class underperforms and how it affects the other asset classes, particularly from the standpoint of risk on versus risk off. And generally speaking, we know that gold is considered a risk off asset because of its use as a store of value. However, there are times for weeks and months at times that the negative correlation that usually exists between gold and the equity markets breaks down. And so for the last, I would say, month and a half or so, we've been seeing that gold and the equity markets have been moving in lockstep, and today's session is no different. So I would be looking for the continued strength in commodities, in oil and in gold, to give us a continued bid under the market in the ES. However, because we are trading at session highs, it gives me the tip that perhaps we need to test higher levels of consolidation before perhaps we see some retracement in the indices. And at that point, we will really see the strength that is on the bid. Do we then consolidate at higher levels, or do we simply retrace and go back to test somewhere in the range of yesterday's price action? So let's take a quicker look, more detailed look at the levels on the ES. And as you can see, we're coming up directly into this area of consolidation that we were trading at on Monday, between this level here at around 2781 and a high of 2800. So given the fact that we've already broken above yesterday's high was 2768. We're trading 2780 in the pre-market. I would be looking for possibly a shallow pullback into that 2768. So retest yesterday's high and then begin price discovery to the upside. And the natural target would be the extremes of this range here, just at around 2800. But we could also test into this level here at around 2808 as well. Let's take a look at TLT. TLT, we're currently trading down just at about 170. Remember, we spoke about the 173 level on TLT offering possibly some resistance coming into yesterday's session. Given the fact that we now have a lift in the equity markets, this is pretty typical of TLT, as it is, again, usually negatively correlated with the ES and the equity markets. So what are we looking for in TLT? Well, we have this gap here to fill. The close was 169.16. We're currently trading 169.88 in the pre-market. And so that would probably be the first target I would be looking for on the downside today in TLT. However, it may have limited downside to this level here at around 168.80 or so. So that's where I'd probably look to scale in long, looking for a retest of the underside of this range here at around 171 if we do firm up a bid under TLT. Let's take a look at Netflix, everyone's favorite earnings darling. Now, Netflix is not a bit tricky here, but you have to understand that separate and aside from sentiment that drives the short-term movement of stocks, the movement of stocks is also dependent on where the inventory of both sellers and buyers are currently at coming into that particular day. Given that we have earnings on Netflix, we spoke about last night in our class, How to Trade Earnings, that Netflix has had a 25% move, essentially, from the lows here at 363 to the all-time regular trading hour high at around 449.52. So at this point, if you were a buyer anywhere between, let's say, 360 to 390, what would you be looking to do if you were holding Netflix to speculate on its earnings? Well, given the fact that we've not appreciated immensely and we're trading where we were almost exactly at where we were at yesterday's close, I would be looking to take profits. And so at this point, I expect a dip in Netflix, possibly to the 400 or 392 level. 392 is definitely where I'd be getting very interested, because it lines up and has a confluence with the tendency of price to backtest areas of prior resistance. And in this case, we had the all-time high breakout at 392. And so therefore, I'll be looking for a buy to scale in to retest higher levels back into 450 and the all-time high set overnight of, I believe, 485 in the coming week or weeks. I do believe we get there on Netflix. Take a look at Google, which has earnings coming up next week. Again, we've been talking about the fact that Google has been lagging its peers. You can see here we had, if we just drill down to the 20-day 1-hour chart, you can see here that most importantly, we spoke about Google closing under 1266. Closing under 1266, we were going to target the other side of the range at around 1228. We eclipsed that in yesterday's trading session, and we traded down to a low of around 1205. And so we were able to cover nicely there for some profits on Google. Given that we have this gap up here now and we're trading 1241 in the pre-market, which is the bottom of this most recent price consolidation, I would look for probably some profit taking at that level right here. And we're currently coming right up into the underside of that. So on the open, I probably expect some profit taking for those who were long yesterday, and then looking for a retest of at least the extremities of the range here at 1263. Remember, Google has earnings coming up next week, and so there may be some momentum to the upside that takes us above this 1290 by next Wednesday, I believe, when it announces its earnings. And lastly, we'll take a look at Amazon before we wrap it up. Amazon continuing to show relative strength, holding this gap that it filled here at 2309, beautifully held it. Now we're back into the middle of the range, so we don't have much asymmetric risk to reward. However, if we were to get a pullback into, let's say, the middle of the range of yesterday's session here at around 2338 to 41, I probably would looking to engage Amazon on the long side, looking for a retest of these higher levels, 2409, and above that 2425, and then the all-time high at 2461 set last week. Keep it simple, smart. Be safe out there today, guys.